Hello, low intermediate group. Mr. John here to help introduce our reading activity for the week. First, let's look here on the screen. In this lesson, we're going to read about sugar. Now, you know I love sugar, but of course, sugar is not very good for us. So we're going to read this article. Now, you're going to read this article as well on your app, but the idea here is we're going to do a couple of activities together to help introduce this topic. Now, in this particular activity, we're going to identify the writer's purpose. Purpose is thinking about why do we write? So let's make a little note here on the screen. So again, the word purpose is thinking about why. Why is the person writing this particular article? Okay? And you notice the next part says we're going to use words from word families. Now, let's take a moment and discuss what a word family is. And we'll look more at it as we look at this particular reading. A word family is when we take a particular word and change it by adding things to the ending of the word. So, for example, let's take the word teach. Now, in this case, teach is a verb. But how would I change the word to say that now I want to talk about the person who teaches? Well, for example, you probably know that we put the letters ER at the end of the word, and now we have a noun. In this case, noun who is a person. So if you'll notice, both of these particular words are part of what we call a word family. So teach and teacher are examples of words that belong to a word family. Now, usually we would say that the word teach is sort of the head of the family, the heading of the word family. So in this case, the word teacher, we might say comes from. We change the word teach to make the word teacher. So that's what a word family is. Okay, so that's kind of beginning the introduction to our particular reading. Let's go ahead now and move on in the presentation here. Okay, so let's look at our second activity. Now I'm going to enlarge the screen for just a moment, and let's look at the particular statements we see here on the screen. Now first off, we see some pretty happy people. See these happy people here? And it looks like they're eating some very delicious food here. What kind of foods do you see here in the video? For example, one of the people here is eating ice cream. Which one's eating the ice cream? Yeah, this woman right over here. Yeah, what kind of ice cream do you think this is? Looks like strawberry maybe to me, but it's hard to tell. Okay, what do you think this gentleman's eating here in the middle? Kind of looks chocolate. Maybe it's a brownie, perhaps? I like brownies. And then finally over here, I'm not sure. He kind of looks a little, I don't know, maybe a little sleepy. It's hard to say. Maybe he's had too much sugar. In this case, looks like he's eating maybe a candy bar. I like Three Musketeers. Those are my favorite candy bars. Well, anyway, let's take a look here at the statements we see on the screen. Why don't you say them with me? I need something sweet after I finish a meal. I often eat sugary cereal for breakfast. I eat a lot of candy and cake on the weekends. I try not to eat a lot of sugary foods. Finally, I can't start my day without something sweet. Now, in this first activity that we're going to do together, it says here we're going to read what some people say about the food they eat. So again, we've looked at a few sentences here. Now, the first question asks, are any of the sentences true for you? Well, as I look at these choices, boy, I like sugar. So the question is, which ones are true for me? Now, for example, I don't eat much cereal anymore, not for breakfast. And I certainly try not to eat a lot of sugary foods anymore. So I would say this is not me. But I would say that if I had to make a choice, I usually eat candy and cake on the weekends. Sometimes I think of these as special treats. So maybe you do the same thing. Maybe on vacation too. Okay, let's think about question number 2. Have you ever tried to eat less sugary food? Well, for me, I have. In fact, I have tried to eat more vegetables. So maybe you have too. But again, I know my dentist, he certainly has liked my eating sugar because I have to go to the dentist, but no, he doesn't want me to eat sugar. But in this case, I like sugary things. So when we think about the reading, that's one of the first things we're going to think about. The difficulties, of course, of eating sugar. All right, let's move on to our vocabulary activity. Now, in this particular activity, I'm going to read each sentence. And the first thing we're going to think about are some new vocabulary words. Some of these words might be new for you. What I would like to do first is let's practice the vocabulary words that we see in bold in these examples. Say these words with me. Consume. Consume. Number 2, obese. Obese. Number 3, pleasure. Pleasure. Number 4, believe. Believe. Number 5, desserts. Desserts. Finally, number 6, it's up to you. It's up to you. Okay, now we're going to go back. Now, the idea in this activity is we're going to read each sentence and see if we can guess what these particular words, these new words mean. Maybe you know these words already. What we're going to do first is we're going to read through each sentence, and I'm going to give you a moment to see if you can guess the answer. Now, try not to use your phones or use the internet. Just see if you can guess what they mean. So again, let's look at number 1. Americans consume a lot of sugar every day. Now, do you think that means buy or eat? Number 2, sometimes people who eat a lot of food are obese. Now, does that mean very fat or does that mean very thin? Number 3, some people say they hate cooking, while others say it gives them pleasure. Now, does pleasure mean a bad feeling or a good feeling? Number 4, some people believe that parents should not give their children sugary food. Does believe mean no or think? Number 5, many desserts, like cake and ice cream, have a lot of sugar in them. So is a dessert a food you eat after a meal or a food you eat before a meal? And finally, number 6, no one tells you what to eat. It's up to you. Does it's up to you mean you can't decide or you can decide? Okay, let's go back and now let's see how you did. Let's check our answers. So for number one, consume means to eat. So when we consume things, we eat them. Of course, we can consume in other ways too. For example, cars consume gasoline. So in this case, they use gasoline for fuel. But when we talk about consuming for Americans, we usually are talking about eating. So sometimes we refer to people who are eating something, we might refer to them as a consumer. So there's one of those word family words that we're talking about. So a consumer is the person who eats or who consumes. Let's try the next word. Okay, so what did you say for the next answer? Is obese fat or thin? Well, in this case, obese means very fat. Number three, so is pleasure a bad feeling or a good feeling? Well, to help us understand the answer here, we have to look at a very important word, and that is the word in the middle of the choices. So some people say they hate cooking, while, now what does that mean? Well, in this case, when we use the word while, we usually use it to show something that is the opposite. Some people do this, other people do this. So the word while helps us see that the information we're talking about is probably not going to be the same. So for example, hate, which one would be the opposite of hate? A bad feeling or a good feeling? Well, in this case, the answer is probably going to be a good feeling. Pleasure means something good. All right, let's check our next answers. Okay, so what about believe? Is believe to know something or to think something? Okay, well, let's check our answers. So in this case, believe is closer to the word think. When we believe something, it's something that we feel. So in this case, we often use the word believe to express something that we think about. Okay, number five, desserts. You might know this word already. So is a dessert something we eat before or after? Well, hopefully you said after a meal. Now, I like cake and ice cream, but I'm not going to eat them before I eat my food. I'll eat them after. So they are desserts. And finally, number six, no one tells you what to eat. It's up to you. So what do you think up to you means? Does it mean I can't decide or I can decide? Well, in this case, it means I can decide. I have a choice. So if something is up to you, then you can choose. Okay. Now, in our next activity, what I am going to do in this particular introduction is we're going to look at the article together. I'm going to enlarge the article now, and we're going to read the article. So I'm going to read the article out loud. You can follow along here in the video. So the title of the article is called The Sugar Problem. A friend offers you home-baked cookies. You say you're going to have one, but you have 5. At work, you pass the vending machine. You tell yourself not to buy a chocolate bar, but you do it anyway. Like many people, you want to eat less sugary food, but you just can't. And you are not alone. Millions of Americans have a sugar problem. The question is, why? A group of scientists has been studying the effects of sugar on the brain. They think that sugar affects an area in the brain called the pleasure center. The pleasure center tells us when something we are doing is enjoyable. It makes us want to do it again. What does all this mean? When we eat sugary foods, we feel good. Our brains are sending us a message. Eat more. It's hard not to eat sugar because it's in so many of the foods we eat, not just in desserts. It's in breakfast cereal, salad dressing, and even in ketchup. Many Americans consume about 3 pounds of sugar every week. This is a problem because there is a link between a high sugar diet and many health problems like diabetes. So, what can we do about the sugar problem? Dr. Robert Lustig has been working with obese children for more than 10 years. He thinks there should be warning labels on sugary foods. He also thinks candy stores should be closed in the afternoons when children walk home from school. Nutrition expert Dr. Marion Nestle thinks there should be a tax on sugary drinks like soda. If they cost more, people will drink less of them. But not everyone agrees. Some people believe it's up to each person to decide what to eat and drink. What do you think? Okay, now in your particular reading activity this week, you're going to do some activities. Some of the activities are going to ask you about identifying the purpose, the topic of what we're trying to read. Some of the activities are going to help you practice some of the vocabulary. So what I would like for you to do this week is to do some of the activities around this reading example. So I'm going to go back for just a moment into the student lessons. So once again, go through the vocabulary that you see here and practice that vocabulary. Practice saying and recording yourself, and practice making the choices between these particular words. Then take some of the words that we've discussed so far and try to put them in the correct boxes. Remember, you can check your answers here at the bottom of the screen. Eventually, you will get to the text. So here's the text here. So we read the text, and again, if you want to listen again, you can click here, or you can watch the video. For example, when I click on the text,
the sugar problem. A friend offers you home-baked cookies.
So again, you can listen to the text again in the app. But I would like for you to do the reading activities that you see here, 6, 7, and 8, okay? And then finally do the vocabulary activities that you see here. When we return to class next week, we are going to do some more activities together using the reading example. So again, in this video, we demonstrated and introduced the sugar problem here. And next time, we're going to do some activities together in our class. All right, guys, good luck.